everyone, it's Joe here from Draft FPL, and today I am showing you my post Game Week 8 Draft FPL rankings for official FPL scoring. I've got 176 players here that I've ranked. That is more than enough for anything up to a 12-man league. These rankings do take quite a long time to put together, so if you do enjoy the video, please do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and there's a link down below to our Patreon where you can join our Discord server to get involved with the channel even more. Without any further ado, let's get stuck straight into the rankings. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about every single player in this list because otherwise this video is going to be like 2 hours long. But I'm just going to go through some of the big movers since the preseason rankings, some of the new players, and just some of the players that I think are a little bit more important. So we'll start at the top. Obviously, Haaland's gone up to rank number 1. He's the top forward and the top player in the game. I had him at 5 in the preseason rankings. This was probably a conservative ranking. I'm not generally one to go big on the new signings. I just find that you get burnt more often than not. Obviously, this time, so far, players that picked Haaland haven't been burnt. He's been absolutely unbelievable so far and easily the number 1 pick. Pep's been managing his minutes, but he has been starting all the Premier League games so far. Whether that continues, we'll wait and see. But for sure, number 1 at the moment. I've got Salah down to number 2. I think so far he has been a little bit disappointing, but I'm still convinced he's the second best player in the game. The rest of the top 3, I think, kind of round themselves out. KDB, Kane and Son, I think I'm in most people's top 5. And I think those 3 could really be in any order. I've got KDB 3rd, then the Spurs boys after. But next up, we've got Jesus, number 6, up 2 places. I think that's kind of fair. Some people might have him in their top 5 amongst these players, but I think just the returns aren't quite as consistent as some people might have hoped at the start of the season. Arsenal do strike me as one of those teams that are sharing the points around a little bit, and Jesus is maybe suffering a little bit because of that. Sterling follows him at number 7. Not much to talk about there. Reece James next, I've got at number 8, up 14 places from his preseason rank of 22. This is my first real big mover. I think Reece James, at the start of the season, we all know he's a good FPL asset. The clean sheets have always been there at Chelsea and the attacking returns as well. But I think under Potter, we might see a new level for Reece James. I think their defence is going to be pretty sound. His bonus is unbelievable. His baseline bonus is one of the best in the league. And he looks like he's going to be playing on that right wing-back role, which is basically in the front 3. I mean, Sterling on the other side looks like he's going to be playing the same position. Obviously, Sterling's going to be a bit further forward and trying to get on the end of stuff, whereas James is going to be more creating chances. But I think Reece James looks like the most consistent defender to have at the moment, and he's my number 1 defender, and I've got him up at rank number 8 in the draft rankings, which is quite surprising for me. I would have said Trent and Cancelo would have been above him, but that's just not really how it's played out. Next up, we've got Bruno Fernandes, which is kind of a similar position to I had him at 7 at the start, and now he's at 9. I've seen other rankings out there where have him down in like the 20s, but to be honest, I think if you look back over the last couple of years, it's not that long ago from seeing a 250-point season for Bruno. And I think with Ronaldo looking to be phased out, surely that means Bruno comes back into our thinking as a top FPL pick. Obviously, I've still got him down at number 9. We've not really seen the best of him so far yet this season, but I think when they have a good run of fixtures and they get the midfield sorted out a little bit, I think he could be an absolutely top pick. So I still have him ranked pretty highly, despite obviously his poor season last season and his kind of iffy start. Next up, Cancelo, Saka, Darwin. Not too much to talk about there. Very similar to my pre-season thoughts on them. Not much has changed. Trent next, down 4 places. I still think he's an absolutely top asset. Liverpool have been not their best so far this season. Trent specifically has had a bit of a poor run of form defensively especially, but the attacking potential is still there, and it always will be because he's such a good deliverer of the football. Bonus as well, he's very strong on, and I think you can't really discount him. Obviously, because of their defensive problems so far, he has suffered a little bit, down 4 places, but I still think he's a great pick. Diaz down 4 as well. In a similar situation, really. I just don't think he's quite lived up to his potential of the second half of last season. I still think he's a great pick, just not quite as good as we'd hoped at the start of the season. Next up, we've got the two sort of lower tier forwards that have really shot up the rankings. I had them Mitra at 50 and Tony at 33 at the start of the season, which I thought was pretty fair, third, fourth, fifth round picks. But I really do think these two have kicked on this season. They look like absolute talisman for their teams. Both teams are playing quite an attacking style, and I think they've really shot up the rankings. I have Mitrovic slightly ahead, but really I think these two are kind of in a tier by themselves in the forwards. Foden next, in exactly the same position I had in pre-season. He's done exactly what we would have expected. Oba next is new to the league. I've got him in at 18, just behind Mitra and Tony in the forwards. We'll have to wait and see on Aubameyang. We'll see how Chelsea's attack plays out. But I think with Potter, I do expect them to play some better football, and I expect Aubameyang to have a decent season. Zaha next. He's come up quite a few places, up 12. He's looked really strong so far this season, and with their better fixtures coming up, I think Zaha's going to do really well. Mount next, down 5 places. Kind of really underwhelming start so far, but hopefully he'll be able to pick it up. Martinelli in the next one is up 17 places from his pre-season, and a lot of people might have him higher than this, but I think the returns have slowed down a little bit. I think he was off to a lightning fast start, but his form has just tapered off a touch. I still think he's a great pick, but I don't think he's that first round pick that he kind of looked like he might have been at the start of the season. Next up is Robertson, similar position to Trent, down 4 places, I think is about right. 22nd, I still have him as a top tier defender. I'm not hearing any of this about him going down below the likes of Trippier or Perisic or Gabriel. I think that's madness. We know what he can do, and once Liverpool start getting things together, start getting the likes of Thiago and Matip back fit, I think we might see Robertson back to his best. I know that Tsimikas is lurking and might take some minutes off him, but I just don't see, he's not the same level of quality as Robertson in my opinion. Next up is Maddison at 23. Initially had him at 25. Again, some people might have him higher, but I just think his returns are kind of unsustainable so far. He's scored a lot of very low XG goals, which he is kind of known for, and he probably will overperform his XG because he is a very strong finisher, but I'm not convinced he is right up there above some of these other mids. But still a good pick. 23rd overall is still a good rank. Next up, we've got this next tier of forwards: Isaac, Watkins, Jota and Wilson. I think they're all kind of around the same sort of place. Isaac comes in at the top, but that might just be a bit of recency bias, to be honest. We'll have to wait and see. Watkins next, then Jota. Obviously, we've not seen much of Jota so far, but going from his track record last year, we'd expect him to have a bit of an impact in this Liverpool side. So I have him in this bunch. That is down 12 places from the start of the season, which, to be honest, you'd probably expect, and we may see him go back up depending on how he does, but that's not unsurprising considering his injury. And Wilson is at the bottom of this list, mainly just because of the Isaac competition. He's back from injury, and he is very injury prone in the future as well, which you do have to consider. Then we've got Trippier, Van Dijk and Perisic next. Trippier climbed up 34 places. I think that's warranted given his form at the start of the season. Newcastle defence looks really strong. He's taking a lot of set pieces. He's having shots from the edge of the box. He just looks like a defender you really want to own. VVD obviously has suffered massively with Liverpool's poor defensive performance so far. VVD is obviously very reliant on those clean sheets and therefore bonus. Perisic next. He's played more minutes than I expected at the start of the season, but he still always have that worry. Obviously went off at 57 minutes last week. It's very depressing when a player you own does that. He's gone up a little bit just because he has started more games than I expected, but he 30th I think is about right. Next up we have Havertz at 31, down 11 places, and probably someone, to be honest, that I over-ranked at the start of the season. I think 20th was probably a bit high given his track record, but I do think he's still a good pick, and I think with Potter he may well just end up being the Pascal Gross of this Chelsea team and getting all the big chances. So I still have him reasonably high. I don't think he's someone you should be wavering. I think he's someone whose stock is quite low at the moment and might be a good buy. Okay, I'm going to skim through some of these and just focus on the more interesting picks. Anthony comes in at 35, new player. I think that seems about right to me. We don't really know how consistent he's going to be. He's really a complete unknown, to be honest. I've got him next to Sancho. That feels about right to me. Obviously, they're playing in the same United team. They have a similar style, and we'll see how the returns go. Couple of big movers here at 36 and 37, Solanke and Bowen. Solanke up 15 places and Bowen down 13. You might be surprised to see Solanke go up from the start of the season, considering the start Bournemouth have had. But I think they have actually looked a lot better the last few weeks. And Solanke is, I think, the only attacking asset I really want to own. You can make a case for Tavernier as well, but Solanke is the one I think that is the key man in this side and the one I would really target. So I think when they have good fixtures, the main forward is always someone you want. Obviously on pens, plays basically every minute now he's fit, and I think just the best pick from this Bournemouth team. And a player that starts every week in your forward line is kind of invaluable because there aren't that many. Bowen been very disappointing so far. His stats are absolutely on the floor. Down 13 places, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised to see him slip below some of these other mids when I update the rankings next. Next interesting player. Somehow I missed Gross off my original rankings. I think I wasn't that sure on Brighton and how much Gross was going to play. To be honest, when I started this list, I actually had Gross up at about 25, way higher than this. But then the whole Potter things happened, and I'm not convinced I can keep him that high, not knowing what's going to happen with the team, with how they set up, how they play. So he has actually taken quite a big hit from where he was at the start of me making this list. And a similar situation for Trossard as well. Obviously up 99 places is quite the surprise. I probably just had him ranked too low. I never really trusted him until this season, but we'll see how he gets on under the new manager. Next up I've got at 53 and 54 Johnson and Bamford, sort of the next tier of forwards. Kind of similar-ish positions to where I ranked them originally. I think these are the next two best forwards on this list. Just consistent performers. You kind of know what you're going to get with them. This is probably the most controversial rank on this list, and that is Rashford. I have down at 60. I'm assuming a lot of people would have him a lot higher than that, and most people may have him above Anthony and Sancho. But I just think the long term, when you look at the entire season, how certain is it that Rashford's going to keep his place? We kind of know that Sancho and Anthony are going to play, and that's a given, and that's why I have them so much higher. I'm just not sure in the long term over the full season when Martial's back fit. There's talk of Greenwood potentially coming back as well. Is Rashford definitely going to keep his place the whole time? I know he's in a decent patch of form at the moment, but long term, is he going to keep that? I mean, this may be my bias talking. I'm not a massive fan of Rashford. I think he's always been a little bit overrated, to be honest. But that just might be my personal opinion showing through in this. I do have him next to Martial. I think they're in kind of a similar situation. Both decent players, but we don't really know how often they are going to start. Mahrez I have next at 62, down 46 places from the original pre-season ranking. And the problem Mahrez has at the moment, and I do own Mahrez in one league, and the problem we have with him is that I just don't think I don't think he fits well in their current team with Haaland in the team, and Mahrez is someone that we know likes to beat players one-on-one, cut inside and shoot, and I don't think that suits how they play at the moment. They'd much rather start with Bernardo Silva and Foden out wide, who are much more ball progressing and can carry the ball and then pass it in to Haaland. So it's a tough situation for Mahrez owners at the moment. I think you just have to hold him and wait and see, but it is very frustrating for him. Few new entries here, GW8 and Rodrigo, both look to be semi-decent performing midfielders. We also have Sinistera, Barnes, Gordon in this little group here. I think these are all good, solid picks, consistent performers, good minutes, and just decent sort of third midfielders for your team. Looking at the next bulk of forwards, Daka, Adams, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin. These are players that are all quite tough to rank, I think. I've got Daka here mainly because I think going forward it's going to look like I think he's going to be the starting man for Leicester. I think Vardy is just a little bit too old now. I don't see him starting games for Leicester anymore. So Daka looks like the player to take up the mantle, in which case I think he's a pretty good pick. The side do create quite a lot of chances, so that's why I have him there. Then it's Che Adams. He is... Saints just don't create that many chances. Che's quite a good player, but yeah, seems about right for him. Then Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin next. These two could change massively. We just don't really know at the moment. Richarlison started a couple of games. He's looked lively. But then Spurs looked way better after they swapped to the 3-5-2 when Son came on against Leicester, and Richarlison was on the bench at that point. And I think they could revert back to that in the future, which puts his position in massive doubt. DCL, great pick when he's fit and firing, but when is that ever going to happen? You know, he should be back from injury now, and maybe going forward we'll see him back to his best and he may shoot up the rankings, but at the moment it's just really hard to own him because you just never know when the next injury is going to come. Okay, so down here we've got a decent slew of defenders here. I think these are all defenders that you want to keep when the fixtures are good. Stones you want to keep when he's playing in the team and playing well like he is at the moment. I think he's one of their best defenders at the moment and looks pretty certain to start most games. Emerson Royale is in a similar situation. You know, it looks like he's got the shirt. They don't really have many other options. Jed Spence doesn't look like he's going to get a minute. Doherty, don't really know. I guess he's not fit. So Emerson Royale, just by warrant of he's the only man for the job really, looks to be starting in that wing-back role for Spurs. Then we've got some decent centre-backs: Zuma, Shah, Anderson, Gahey, Mitchell for Palace at full-back, and Martinez and Varane, all centre-backs for decent defensive teams. Then we've got our first set of goalkeepers: Lloris, Alisson and Ederson, down at 90, 91, 92. Basically almost exactly the same positions I had them ranked at the start of the season. Lloris has gone up to the number one goalkeeper for me. I just think Spurs are a really good defence, but Lloris also makes a lot of saves, is good on bonus, and they may get one or two less clean sheets than Liverpool and City over the course of the season, but he'll more than make up for that with saves and bonus points in my opinion. Alisson second, a similar situation to Lloris, just seemingly a slightly worse defence at the moment. And then Ederson next. Obviously almost everyone has Ederson as the number one keeper, but he just doesn't make saves, doesn't get bonus, and for that reason I just don't think he's as good as the other two. You'll never see Ederson get a 9-10 pointer, which you do see occasionally from the likes of Lloris and Alisson. Okay, next up we've got a few of the sort of decent midfielders that are kind of look like they're playing but not great for returns, but people you want to rotate in and out based on fixtures. Then we've got some forwards that I think are not necessarily starters, definitely third forwards if anything. Vardy and Alvarez in that situation. Jimenez looks like he's got a reasonably bad injury and he may drop off this completely if that is confirmed, but at time of recording we're not really sure what's going on there. But I just think Wolves' attack is really bad. You won't see Diego Costa on this list at the moment, mainly because I don't really know what's going on with him at the moment. Jimenez, if he's out long term, Costa could play, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a front three of basically three midfielders for Wolves. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Costa, I'm just not sold on him. He's only played more than 20 games in a league season once since he left Chelsea 5 years ago. And that was a couple of years ago now. So I don't think he's going to have the legs to start up front for Wolves every week. And I'm just not convinced he's that player anymore, really. Antonio up next. I'd like to see Antonio higher in this list, but we just don't know what's going to happen with Scamacca long term. And West Ham's attack has been pretty poor so far anyway. Mbeumo, a player I really like, and I'd love for him to do well, but he just never really has that cutting edge. He has a few good games for Brentford. He always performs well on the stats tables, but he just doesn't seem to convert into fantasy points. We've got some nice boring defenders here: Cody, Dunk, Veltman, Webster, Patterson, Tarkowski. Obviously there is an injury doubt over Patterson now, but I'm leaving him here for the time being until we know a bit more information. Few more keepers: Ramsdale, Pope, Mendy, Sarr. Obviously, Mendy's place is kind of in doubt at the moment. We think Potter might prefer Kepa, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Don't really know how that's going to shake out. Obviously, Kepa might be a decent pickup at the moment just because you can hide him. In case he gets the shirt, you've already got him in place. Okay, so I've just noticed that the rank change from Emerson Royale down was incorrect, but I've just gone and updated that now, and that is also correct on the spreadsheet that is live. So yeah, they are correct from now on. They were basically one position out. I'm not sure how I've managed that, but there we are. So next up, a little group of forwards here that, you know, Ronaldo I think might be the biggest downward mover at 98 places. I just don't think he's going to start. I don't see him starting for United really under any circumstances other than an absolute injury crisis. He does not seem to be in Ten Hag's plans, and the team just doesn't suit him at all. I would not be surprised in the slightest if he left in January. There's just no real teams in for him that can afford him, which is the biggest problem. So I have him down here at 117 with Welbeck, Scamacca, Mope, all kind of in the same position. Decent picks if they're going to play, but we're just not sure about the minutes. Here we have a bunch of midfielders that are all okay picks, mostly central midfielders, couple of wingers that have a bit of threat, but not loads. McAllister obviously has the pens and, you know, the odd free kick, but he's not going to be doing that every week. Willock has a decent threat, but his end product's been a bit iffy. Ericsson plays a little bit too deep for my liking, but his expected stats are actually okay. Then we have Tavernier for Bournemouth, good player, but just not in the best side to promote attacking returns for a winger. Okay, next we got a load more keepers, some more sort of midfielders that are not 100% sure on the minutes. Then, I've just seen a few real big drops. I thought Ronaldo might have been the highest, but Cash and Dean both down over 100 places, and they've just been so disappointing. Villa have been probably the most disappointing team so far. Cash and Dean specifically, they've not been keeping clean sheets. Cash has picked up an injury. I do think Villa look like they're going back to the solid defensive unit that they kind of were when Gerrard first took over. So these two may bounce back and go back up the rankings as we go forward. I don't think they're the worst picks in the world. When they have a good fixture, it's not a terrible decision to pick one of these up and play them. I mean, their attacking threat looks like it's really dipped down, which is a shame. Coutinho here down 110 places. Been so disappointing. I wish I'd never drafted him. But there we are. Anyone else of interest? Not really. We're kind of scraping the barrel at this point. We've got midfielders that I think are going to play most of the minutes, have a little bit of attacking threat. Sort of defenders from mid-table and below teams that are guaranteed minutes, and that is about it really. Firmino here, I just don't think he's going to get the minutes now with Darwin back and Jota fit again. And then we have the bottom four keepers, Meslier, Leno, Neto and Ward in last place in 176th. Okay, so that is my full 176-man ranking. You can view the entire spreadsheet yourself if you wish. The link is down in the description below. As I said at the start, these do take a long time to prepare, so if you do enjoy them, please do consider joining the Patreon. The Patreon members did see this a few days early and did try and troubleshoot it for me just in case I've missed anyone, so you do get a little bit more behind the scenes action like that. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll see you next time.